Welcome back. Since last time, ARDCO have reached its investment goal for now. We started off with the 1 billion investment, another 2.1 trickled in, and then of course this week we got another 2 billion in investment before I halted any further investment for now. Since then we paid a little bit of taxes to Plenitude, and this money will pretty much only be used to buy fuel blocks from our refiners. So the most recent 2 billion investment came from a person who'd like to be known as KK. And as I mentioned, we will be halting the investment for now so we don't accumulate too much, and frankly we don't need any more money right now. But in the future we might open up for more investments, depending on how things go. But maybe most importantly, this week we got our first member joining up with ARDCO, and that is Freya. And during the week Freya has been moving down his or her stuff down to Kithaled and have begun setting up PI for coolant production. Hopefully someday we'll get to do some ice mining together, and within no time we will be producing fuel blocks. And as a goal we'll be using the large order we've been talking about. And for Freya it'll be a focus on the helium fuel blocks, since that is the easiest way to make a profit, because we have the helium isotopes in abundance. And I'll try and work on the nitrogen, oxygen and hydrogen ones. And if we move on to my character, we left off here on the 16th. Started off as a kind of slow week. We have a bit of an increase in the net worth. That's because of the trading. And here you can see it's really starting to increase with the trading. And of course this big spike, which we will be talking about in a bit, because this is me heading out to Null-sec to mine. And this is me refining the ice, coupled with a really good day in terms of trading. So with the influx of the trade money, I have been able to ramp up production again. And you can see this in our fuel block stockpiles, where you can see an increase in all of the fuel blocks. These are just my personal ones, so this doesn't include any that Freya have been producing so far. You can see the helium ones at 14,600, the oxygen at 7,000, nitrogen at about 8,400, hydrogen at 5,600. And these should cover the orders that we have coming up for the next month. But hopefully I can keep up the pace and continue producing this many. So during the week I finally finished off the medium drone operation 5. And this enabled me to outfit my procurer with the necessary damage to be able to take down the rats out in Null-sec. Yesterday was the first time I tried out the mining. So far it's been without hiccups. There were a few rats that drained your capacitor, which was a bit tricky, but once I've figured out how to keep them at range, I could slowly take them down. Out in my Null-sec belt, I do have the Glarkrust, Dark Glitter and Gelidas, however not the Crystallos. So I've mainly been focusing on the Gelidas to get the strontium clathrates, which previously has been a bottleneck for me. But since I have the other two as well, if I run out of liquid ozone or heavy water, I should be able to mine some of the other two. But you do get some with the Gelidas as well, so I think the strontium clathrates will be the bottleneck again. So skill-wise, after the medium drone operation, I've headed back into my trade skills. And by the next episode, I'll have these two important level 5 skills done, and I can get into the wholesale one and get tons of new market orders. After that, I'll head back into and finish off the refining. Maybe not the last ice refining one, because that's, 2 weeks. And instead, I'll try and get back into a deep space transport. And in the last episode, many people pointed out that for me, doing mainly fuel blocks and ice, that the upwell ones are really the go-to choice. And I looked into it, and yeah, I have to agree, you guys were right. So I'll be scaling into that one. So this week has also been the first week where I've been using the jump clones, jumping back and forth, and I'm kind of getting into the groove of it. And I've tweaked my PI setup to run on a 2-day extraction setup instead of a 1-day. So I'm jumping between Jita, doing the trades, then I jump back down to Amar and do my PI and production and hauling stuff around. And now I'll be doing the ice mining as well. And in general, the trading has been going really well. I don't know if it's because of the new expansion, a lot of people getting back into the game. But for some of the items, prices are soaring and they're moving really fast. So I think it's a lot of people, like when you're doing trading, the people who you make money from are the PvPers. Industrialists are too concerned about tiny margins, and they have their spreadsheets. Whereas PvPers, they just buy stuff. So a lot of the rigs has been going really well. And even ammo has really good margins right now. So what I'm doing with the money I'm making, I'm not entirely putting it back into market. I'm also using it to buy materials for the fuel blocks. And money was really my big bottleneck before, where I only used the profits from selling fuel blocks. But now I can just continuously pump in money into making more and more fuel blocks. And I'll just be giving these to ARDCO. I'm not paying myself from the investment money. And I know there's people sitting out there now thinking, but the time investment in mining, the time investment, you're not going to make any profit. And like my end goal is not really to get rich myself. My end goal is to make ARDCO into a service, and that's where I'll make the money. So in a sense, I don't really care if I make a profit on a fuel block. Once it has scaled, ARDCO will make a profit from the service itself, because there'll be a tiny cost associated with that. And once you scale that, you'll start making some money. And I can decrease the cut we take from the fuel blocks. And eventually the refiners and tankers can take the entire cut of the fuel block. But again, the problem for me is the scale. So that's why for me it's just a win to pump in money into ARDCO, so I can have more and more fuel blocks, have a bigger stockpile, which will attract more and more customers that will sign up and pay a tiny fee. Right now I'm thinking about 1 million each month, which will be 12 million for a year to be supplied with fuel blocks. Sounds like a good deal to me. And if we feel that we get too many customers, we can say, hey, we're going to increase the sort of subscription to 2 million each month. If you're not okay with that, that's fine. We'll give you here's a month's worth of your fuel blocks at the previous price, and we'll say thanks and we'll move on. And then we can decrease the amount of customers, and eventually we'll find a good level for how much people are willing to pay each month. So that will be everything for this week. Check out the Discord link in the description, and until next week, I'll see you there.